Chapter 34. The Inheritance of the Levites. Numbers 18, 20 to 24. And the Lord spake unto Aaron, Thou shalt have no inheritance in their land, neither shalt thou have any part among them. I am thy part and thine inheritance among the children of Israel. And behold, I have given the children of Levi all a tenth in Israel for an inheritance, for their service which they serve, even the service of the tabernacle of the congregation. Neither must the children of Israel henceforth come nigh the tabernacle of the congregation, lest they bear sin and die. But the Levites shall do the service of the tabernacle of the congregation, and they shall bear their iniquity. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations, that among the children of Israel they have no inheritance. But the tithes of the children of Israel, which they offer as an heave offering unto the Lord, I have given to the Levites to inherit. Therefore I have said unto them, Among the children of Israel they shall have no inheritance. Numbers 18, 20 to 24. The subject of inheritance has a curious history. In much of history, inheritance has been a central fact in society. Being an heir has been all important. It has often had too heavy a social importance and has been too heavily weighted by blood factors rather than faith factors. In the 20th century, our view of inheritance has been warped by several factors. First, there is a decline in faith, and therefore of sound premises in naming an heir. In Scripture, faith is the determining factor. While the heir was normally male, an ungodly, lazy, or incompetent male could be passed over. Caleb made his daughter his heir and added a prize for her successful suitor, Joshua 15, 13 to 19. The line of descent was the line of strong faith and responsibility. Second, the state has now made itself the primary heir, and it takes its portion before anyone else can. The reason for this is the return of paganism, and a retreat to the most savage form of paganism, the desire to destroy wealth, and this urge is based on envy. In ancient paganism, when a man died, his wealth often had to die with him. This could include his wives or wife, as in the Hindu sati, or elsewhere, the living entombment of wives and slaves. Very commonly, the material possessions of the dead man were buried with him. His property was destroyed, and his hut either pulled down or left to decay. Many brutal customs have accompanied death. Envy has often accomplished in funeral rites what it could not in the life of man. At times, debts are inherited when other things are destroyed. Third, we are now accustomed to thinking of inheritance in purely material terms, whereas historically inheritance has also meant a faith, a name, a character, and much more. Fourth, modern thinking on the subject is pagan. Many seem to believe that an inheritance is too material a concern, and they push it out of their minds as something impure. The Bible, however, again and again deals with heirship. Here it is the priestly and the Levitical inheritance which is the subject of legislation. On entering the Promised Land, Israel was to divide the land, first in terms of the 12 tribes or clans, and then in terms of the families in the clans. Second, all rural properties were to remain in the possession of an assigned family, generation after generation. Such lands could be leased, but not sold. The rural population was to provide a stable element in the nation. The urban properties could be sold. In this text, the priests and the Levites were told that they would receive no land for their inheritance. The priests would be attached to the sanctuary, and the Levites, as the instructors of Israel, Deuteronomy 33:10, would be scattered throughout the land, in the villages and the cities. For both priests and Levites, God was to be their inheritance. I am thy part and thine inheritance, verses 20 and 23. This fact is repeatedly stressed in Deuteronomy by Moses shortly before Israel conquered Canaan, as for example, Wherefore Levi hath no part nor inheritance with his brethren, the Lord is his inheritance, according as the Lord thy God promised him. Deuteronomy 10:9. And ye shall rejoice before the Lord your God, ye and your sons and your daughters, and your men servants, and your maidservants, and the Levite that is within your gates, forasmuch as he hath no part nor inheritance with you. Deuteronomy 12:12. The priests, the Levites, and all the tribe of Levi shall have no part nor inheritance with Israel. They shall eat the offerings of the Lord made by fire, and his inheritance. Therefore shall they have no inheritance among their brethren. The Lord is their inheritance, as he hath said unto them. Deuteronomy 18:1 and 2. What this means is that, while the priests and the Levites served God, their sustenance came from the people. If the people were faithful with their tithes and offerings, the priests and Levites flourished greatly. At other times, they were poor or starving. The two groups, priests and Levites, were together the clergy and the clerisy, the source of religious leadership and scholarship. If they were not supported, the nation would decay. God, in this way, tells the people that their future under him depends on how they treat the clergy and the clerisy. In verse 22, the people are warned against all unlawful entrance into the sanctuary, against any presumptuous assumption of duties not belonging to them, lest they bear their sin and die. There is a division of labour and of responsibility in God's sight. The tithe was to be given to Levitical work, verse 24, and the Levites were to give a tithe of the tithe to the priests. Consider the implications of this. There were in Israel, apart from the Levites, 600,000 men. The Levites numbered 22,000, of which we can perhaps say that 12,000 were adult men. This would make the provision for the Levites as much as for any 5 men of the tribes. This, of course, assumes faithful tithing. Translated into our times, this would mean that funds sufficient for worship, education, scholarship, schools, universities, and more would be available. We have always what we pay for as a people. It should be remembered that the priests also received first fruits and other gifts, portions of meal offerings, sin offerings, trespass offerings, oil, wine, grain, fruits, and more. This took the place of their inheritance. God declares himself to be their inheritance, verses 20 and 23. Marsing commented, The Lord himself was to be the inheritance and share of the priests, verse 20. He was the basis of their existence. They could count on him to take care of them. God gives us a very practical test of a people's caliber. If his work is not well supported, then people cannot expect God's blessings. They have shown their contempt for their great landlord. The priests and Levites could own homes in the villages and cities where they served, but this was by purchase, not by inheritance at the time of the conquest. The priests and the Levites, God's clergy and clerisy, can be called God's lawyers. We do know from the New Testament that this was the title for some experts in God's law. God's clergy and clerisy, as his lawyers, are called to present the case for God against a godless generation. They are required to be faithful in their indictment of an apostate people and culture. Theirs is not a calling to sweetness and light, but to the indictment of self-satisfied and willfully ignorant peoples. And in this and related texts, God says in effect that if his faithful clergy and clerisy are not supported, the people will pay a greater price than money. Dumelo's comment on these verses is excellent. Those who are separated to the service of God are taught to depend on him. He sends no one into warfare at his own charges. See 1 Corinthians 9, 7-14. It is an error common to our time to see God's clergy and clerisy as a soothing luxury rather than as God's army. The world is a battleground of faith and ideas. It is of interest that the poet George Herbert, 1593-1633, wrote of the tithe. Restore to God his due in tithe and time. A tithe purloined cankers the whole estate. Thomas Scott, some generations back, stated it clearly when he noted that God placed the priests and Levites in an inseparable connection with the maintenance of the worship of God. We are today paying a price for the neglect of God's work.